Okay, hi to our CI hacking session today. I'm gonna try to run this, and what we're gonna look at is, first of all, at this issue. If we have further time at the end, we could maybe just pick another one from TriH and take a look. Yeah, so let's take a look at this issue. Killian did open this issue a month ago, or around a month ago. And let's take a look what it is about. Basically, it's some tests inside which makes us use of runtime SDK and tries to create, upgrade, and delete a workload cluster. And there we have an issue which often pops up that some hook call doesn't get recorded, which results in the test to fail. I did already some research there, so let's maybe take a look first at triage. So I have a filter here which just shows to us, okay, yes, this flake is still relevant. It happened 2 times in the last day in normal CI. So it was in our periodics for main, in end-to-end main, and mincates main. So still relevant to look at it. Yeah, still makes sense to do it. Okay. Yeah. What we have is, okay, we have this log message and lots of jobs and artifacts where we could take a look at. What I also did already is I tried to reproduce the issue so we can, yeah, maybe actually try and fix the issue by find our ways how to further go down on this issue. So what I did for reproducing it is, let me open that in the editor. I just put a for loop around the test so it gets run more often in CI. And this resulted in helping to reproduce the issue. So all I did go into this test, which is the cluster upgrade runtime SDK test. Which installs the cluster and upgrades it. And this all includes a runtime SDK extension, which records or tries to simulate that, or it doesn't simulate, it actually uses a test extension, which then records that the hooks got executed into a config map. And this tests make sure that this hooks got called and everything got done properly. And what I did was I just did put around a for loop around the interesting part of the test, which is where the cluster gets created, the cluster gets upgraded, and so on. Yeah, Killian.
Just for people who aren't aware, so runtime SDK is a new feature that was added in kind of the 1.3, 1.4 cycle. But the test extension is an external component completely that runs alongside the other management components in the cluster. And basically our controllers just can call out the test extension during its life cycle. And this is just testing that works. And the way it does so, which I guess we'll see in a minute, is it records state in a config map, which the test then checks. So that's kind of the overall flow of this test through creation, upgrade, and deletion of a cluster.
Yeah, basically it's also documented in a book here. Thanks, Killian. There are some hooks we can execute, like the before cluster create hook, the after control plane initialized hook, before cluster upgrade, and so on. So there are multiple places where the runtime SDK, or you could define a hook which should get executed for your clusters during lifecycle. Yep. To jump back, so all I did was adding this for loop here, which closes here somewhere at the end. And I had to work around some stuff that it basically cleans up again in the next for loop, which enters it. Does also work. What I also did here is I adjusted the call to dump and delete cluster here to bring all artifacts to a different directory. Otherwise, the cluster would have always the same name and the artifacts would just get overwritten. So that's why I had to do this, but we can kind of ignore that. So I implemented that pull request, and if I go back to the actual pull request here, I implemented that. It took lots of trial and error until I reached that state, because there were different ways how you could run that test multiple times. But this current state of the PR is the one I did reach the working state. And I did run often the /test pull cluster API end-to-end informing main, which executes this test. And finally, when I take a look at the latest one I started, so yesterday it just started the test again. And if we look into it, we should have exactly hit the issue again. So we can see, okay, here the issue got hit. And yeah, so we're able to reproduce it in CI using this pull request. What I also tried, after knowing that we can reproduce it using this pull request, I tried to run the same locally, but the issue didn't happen there. So I'm not able to dig into it locally using debugger and all that fancy stuff. So yeah, the only way I currently see is analyze it using this pull request. Maybe if we have some clue, add some more information somewhere to dump, so we could re-execute the test in CI and check that out. I also already did some little bit of analysis of failed jobs. This was with jobs in April, about a month ago already. And I was able to triage them a bit from what we have there in the artifacts of these tests. So what I was able to see is there were 3 times I did see that at the cluster object, the condition for topology reconcile was set to failed, with the message handler has not been registered. And the other times were a different case. So I did a bit inspection into this one and did see, okay, did some analysis and try to see if we got further information there, but maybe we just go down that road with an example to see where we are. Yeah, at that time I said, okay, maybe I try to reproduce it locally so we can go into the debugger or dump more information about the state where it fails. So yeah, I think we're at the point where we have to take a look, what information do we want to see to hopefully find the real issue here.
So one question I have.
Yeah.
So you have these, let's say, whatever, 5 different cases or 3 different groups.
Yeah.
Did you check the config map? Do you have access to the config map in CI?
Yeah. So I did check the config map, but that looked totally fine. So
as in upgrade was recorded. Maybe not in the.
It failed at a different place. So maybe we just take a look and dig into one example to see, to see all data. Okay, maybe just take the latest one from today, which was this one. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna download this whole directory so we can browse it using the IDE, which is way more easy. So I just get that whole, set that variable to that URL, and I already have that curl somewhere here. Or not. I have to copy it from Slack. Give me a second. Yeah.
So one question to get this right in my head. Runtime SDK is another controller like Christian, or CAPI extension controller that runs on the Kubernetes management cluster, CAPI management cluster, right?
Yeah, it's a deployment in our case.
Okay.
It's a deployment which is there. So we also have it in here for our tests.
Maybe it's feasible to reduce the CPU ticks to reproduce it locally. Maybe in this case we can hit the arrow.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah, maybe we can try this. Maybe the CPUs on the Pro infrastructure is not that good as your M1, whatever your CPU is.
Yeah, totally fair. I have no clue how to do that.
Okay. If it's a deployment, you can easily reduce it. Or
you mean just limiting it in the deployment spec somewhere? Yeah. At this point,
sorry.
At this point, I think we're at a place where we can reproduce it in CI, and I just don't want to waste more time trying to reproduce it locally.
That's fair. Sometimes setting the limits in deployments as well per deployment has perverse impact because previously it's not guaranteed. And we don't set the limits for other controllers in CAPI for these tests. So
we don't have any limits.
We don't have any limits on any of our deployments.
Okay.
So setting the limits on the test extension, even if it's very low, I mean, above 10 millis or something, could actually have the impact of it being more stable and having access to more CPU if it's the fact that another controller is actually eating up cycles.
Yeah, I mean, before that, we should find out if the issue really is that in our case, that the test extension is not reachable or something like that, or the pod is not ready anymore or something like that. So if we know that, we could dig into why is that. So yeah, so the test extension itself lives here in test/extension and is basically a reference implementation of some basic hook, which does nothing more than writing the response to a config map, responding with a predefined response from the config map, if I got it right, but yeah. Okay, I downloaded the files here. Let's open it in VS Code. I hope the size is okay for introspection. So taking another look at the log here, where the issue happened, okay. That's actually exactly the message. So the call is not recorded in the config map, which is in this namespace and called like this. So maybe just take a first look into that config map, how it looks like. Now we have to find where it is. So it's in cluster, in our Bootstrap cluster, because the test extension, all this happens in the management cluster, which is the Bootstrap cluster here. We can take a look into, I think sometimes the curl doesn't work as I want. Maybe there's some kind of limit there. I don't know. That's weird. Okay, maybe then just rebrowse at the, what's over here. Okay. So let's take a look at the Bootstrap cluster resources. Inside our namespace, there's the config map. And let's take a look at the hook responses here. And the interesting part should be the data part here, which has the preloaded responses, and we can actually ignore that preloaded responses if I'm right, because that's just the answer which gets returned, right, Killian, if I'm right?
Yeah, so that's right. And then during the test, once we pass certain checks, we change those so that we modify the behavior of the test extension from the test itself.
Yeah, and so if you take a look, the before cluster upgrade one didn't work. So, but actually it has recorded it with correctly. So
is that correct? I wonder. So the reason, so if we go, can you go to the code where the test is actually failing? I think it's 476, line 476 in the runtime SDK upgrade test.
Yep, let me open it. Moment. Line number.
So it was 451, I think, where we're.
Yeah, I have some local changes here, so I just stashed them. So.
Oh, yeah.
But I should be on the branch, so. So it's in here where it fails, or this timeout gets hit, which is why.
Yeah, and can you check the check life cycles hook called at least once, I guess is our.
So it gets the lifecycle hook responses from the config map and checks that hook name dash actual response status is there.
So one issue we have, I think, so can you just check the stack of the error again, just to make sure that this is where the error is getting returned from, or Omega might modify that in a way that's annoying. 376.
376.
That's probably just where the, yeah, it's forfeit. Yeah, so we can't.
Yeah, before cluster upgrade.
Yeah, that's just where this one is being called.
Yeah.
Just because I know that error gets called in two places.
Okay.
There's a called at least once, and then there's another test call. So there's a similar error in two places, but that's okay.
Yeah, so yeah, so it actually looks like that it's okay, right? That the hook went through at least a bit later than.
Well, there is no. Is that a map or is it a string? Sorry, the top one is a map, but you see the way on the right-hand side, are they all the preloaded response? Sorry. Yeah, so all the actual responses, but the preloaded responses are in an object.
Yeah.
I guess because they need to be unmarshaled. It's just there's probably a bug there in how we're marshalling and unmarshalling, but that should be fine in this case.
Yeah, so this, but it's also mapped to like before cluster create.
Yeah.
Which also has state of success, this and this the actual response.
So If you go to actual response status, sorry, where we're checking that in the end-to-end test code, how up to date are we keeping the config map? Can we, yeah, maybe go into runtime test. And go into get lifecycle hook responses from config map.
Yeah, we just get the whole config map, loop over, yeah, ignore this foo printing stuff here. It just returns the config map.data stuff. And then extracts the data or takes a look if the data is in there. If there is, that just needs to be hook name dash actual response status there. It doesn't matter what the value is from this.
And have you got the logs with the foo in them for these runs?
Yep, should be. It's just bad that it does print it before all the test output, but basically the last one should be the last one, the last time it entered that place. So yeah, it exactly prints that out.
But we don't have before cluster upgrade actual
Before
response.
cluster.
We've
Yeah, there's no before cluster upgrade response in there. And
okay.
in our one here, there's one there. So after the test failed, it seems to, or before dumping the data and after failing the test, it seems like the controllers did succeed in the meantime. Know what I mean?
Yeah. So can you go back to your foos and check the times?
Yeah.
So one issue that we run into constantly with flakes is controller runtime uses a cache for objects. I'm not sure for caching config maps, possibly not. Do you know, Christian?
Sorry again.
Are we caching config maps in controller runtime? Probably, right? We don't cache secrets.
Probably, yeah.
So that means that because we're caching them, this could prevent us like constantly storming the API server for information. Everything we have is always slightly out of date. Most of the time, there's no change between what we have and what the API server has. But there is always a risk of us getting something in the 100 milliseconds or whatever it is. Like Tobias said earlier, CPU constraints can make that really important because the cache might not update as quickly if we have constraints. So maybe it's the cache. So, sorry, Christian, what I'm looking for is where you have the foo logs.
Yeah. So
to check for this, do we have a second for when that was actually?
Yeah, at the logs, I'm also printing the whole metadata here.
All right.
So that's what I copied over here now to this file, so I could format it. And there's also the managed fields in here. Managed fields. And the managed fields can tell us which parts of the object did get updated when the last times. And this here says, okay, this fields, which doesn't include the before cluster upgrade actual response, was lastly updated at 17:51 and 34 seconds, which basically is then before the time the test failed, or the last time it was updated before the test failed. And if we take a look back in here into our dumped version, and take a look at the managed fields too, it is about a minute later where it succeeded. So 52:41. and 5134.
Yeah. So can we check the logs of the test extension? The test extension should log when it writes to a config map.
So the point. So in here, we can go to logs of the Bootstrap cluster, test extension system. Okay, and
Maybe just search the before update. Most of this is, so the patches stuff is called every run, so we'll get way more patches called.
reverse. Yeah, so the last call is exactly at 5241, which is expected because our config map had that timestamp. And before that, it was 5103.
So what we think is happening here as a result is that actually our test extension isn't getting called quickly enough.
Yeah, maybe it's due to some back off which is happening.
Yeah, can we look at the CAPI controller manager logs, just see if there's anything odd happening, because the reason I'm very interested in this, so like we probably have a timeout, and maybe if we just set the wait period in our test to 5 minutes, this flake will never happen again, which would be a win for us. But if we can patch an issue that's going on in controller manager, the core CAPI controller manager, maybe this actually impacts a bunch of our flaky tests that do upgrades. Maybe upgrades 1 every 10 times just takes really long.
Yeah. I just want to place it somewhere
Nicer.
nicer. Because that's JSON log and it has not the perfect timestamp in there. So
Yeah, we have to get a good setup and documentation around using the log reader to get Loki up and running. So we have a Loki setup that you can push these into, so you can actually parse the logs in Grafana and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah, I did that in also sometime in the past, but
yeah, it would take me 2 hours to get it up and running today. We just have to.
Okay, maybe we just. But I already did some JQ magic in the past.
You do JQ to resolve the timestamps. Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome. Can you post that query somewhere, please?
Yep. Maybe. Paste that in the thread here.
That to date, is that a JQ function?
Sorry?
To date ISO.
Oh yeah, these are jQuery functions.
Oh.
Yeah. So the point is, I maybe currently drop fields, but what we could do is we could just dump the whole JSON to it. So dump the new timestamp followed by the whole JSON as string, maybe. Maybe that's good enough.
Yeah, we definitely want to keep the key pairs, I think. Though it will only have one cluster here, presumably, so it'll be that bad.
Yeah. Let me just paste that command too. Okay. So sadly, the logs end at
Oh man.
31:53, which doesn't include our wanted parts anymore. So
But we are in the middle of it, right?
yeah, so let us see what was the 51:03 was the last one. So maybe we find some. Why is it 31? That's half an hour.
Oh,
Well, these are lots of lost logs then.
well, sorry, no, this is, yeah. So that's before cluster create. So it's,
Yeah, the point is,
can you just dump the thing without your JQ query just to see if they're the same?
sorry?
Can we look at the raw logs without the JQ parsing just to make sure they're the same as we have? There's not.
So let's maybe just take that one. Okay, let's do divide by 1,000 and convert. Oh yeah, there are more logs here. What's happening there? Maybe the query fails at some point.
Yeah. Yeah, because those are the deletion logs, right, that we have at the very end there, which is what we'd expect. We eventually lose the CAPI controller.
What's this? Is that the right? Oh, my file is just not complete, I think. So that's not that.
Are you getting weirdly like rate limited by GCS?
Yeah, looks like. That. Oh. Yeah, there are some handshake things. Let's filter them out.
Not that many.
Now let's take a look at this. That looks better. So we now have the full logs we want. Okay, we may want to filter them some more.
So hold on, we've got calling all extensions of hook before cluster. Can you just Google before cluster? Google, Jesus, that's terrible. Search before cluster upgrade and just see if it's only being called once.
So that's already this one should be the one which reaches our final.
Right.
state.
So the first one we call that is point. Yeah. So we only call it 3 or 4 times.
And before that is 44:51, which is 4451 was the time which was recorded in the config map, not in the config map, which was recorded in the logs. So
I think you had that in the other file. You had the 2 timestamps to compare. The config map.
it was in VS
Okay.
Code.
Yeah.
Sorry for fuzzy things. So it was here 5134, and that's 50.
Oh, that's, hold on, we've got 34 in 2 places.
Wait. So that was the foo output, which was at 5134, which misses our stuff.
So what's the first call of that? The first call of that is actually be at 41 or something, right?
Okay. 5134 could be any hook reached out to the test extension, right? So
So 5241 is the first time we get a call, right? To before cluster upgrade.
5241 is the
Sorry,
call after our test failed.
but that's the first time. I can't see this is the first instance of this in the CAPI controller manager logs, right?
I'm not sure. It could be also the 7044, but this could also be the last iteration.
Where are we getting it before? Oh, sorry, sorry. If you can just do calling all extensions, but where's the first one of these calls? In this log file. So what I'm trying to find out is, are these calls successful? Is the main thing.
Okay, calling all extensions off. So that seems to before cluster create. And the first before cluster upgrade call is after our test failed.
Okay, so this is the first time it's 5241.
Yeah.
What do you mean after the test fails? Is the test post failure before that? It post failure at 5234, is it? Something like that.
It's post
or 5134. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's look at what the controller is doing in the couple of minutes before that.
From
the logs.
Can all replicas already, so it's waiting for nodes to roll out, right?
What's actually happening is it's not actually reconciling very often. Where are we exiting? That's reconciled pretty often, I guess. Waiting for the Kubernetes node on the machine to report ready state.
Seems like it's doing some kind of rollout. But at that point, it shouldn't roll out anything because our hook should get called first, right?
This could be, so the flow of the test, I guess this is still in create. So there's a before cluster create hook, there's an after control plane initialized hook. Those are both positive at this point, and then there is a before cluster upgrade hook. I think that's the order in which they're called. So what's happening here, I guess, particularly the machine pools seem to be still rolling out.
Before, so yeah, here.
So what's happening, I think, at this point is that our I wonder, is there a cluster topology controller? But our upgrade is certainly being blocked. Possibly before cluster upgrade call is even called, because the workers aren't ready.
Yeah.
What it maybe looks like. This could be down. This is all happening on main, so it's not down to. I know there was an issue with machine pools.
Yeah,
There was a node watcher added.
This is main some days ago. I rebased, I think, beginning of the week. If you look here, I rebased this stuff. Was pushed to, it was last week. Where's the timestamp? Where do I see that? Good. I rebased on, pretty old. So it's 9 days old.
Yeah, but so what I was interested in was a PR that's from like a month ago.
Okay.
Which is in machine pools. They added a node watcher to machine pools.
Yeah.
So this should be fine for that issue. Okay.
Okay, maybe let's recap what do we have currently. We have after the failed test, it's we'll see that before failing the test, the hook, the before cluster upgrade never got called. So it was, so we're sure, at least it was not the issue that the hook wasn't reachable. The issue currently was the hook did not even get called because something was rolling out or something was still be done before reaching the code for calling the hook. Okay. So maybe to show one more observation I had when taking a look at the cluster object, what we can see here is, here it was last updated 52.13, so this may be outdated data. Yeah, that's where the upgrade continued later on.
So in our conditions, our topology reconcile conditions, this is doing okay. No, it's blocking. Oh yeah, but that's where we deleted in this test anyway, right?
Yeah, so at the point where this case finished and dumped the stuff, it reached the place where the upgrade, the hook is blocking for this some seconds thing, right? But I had other cases where this was not the state of the cluster at that point. I also had some, let me take a look what I did right down here. Yeah, I also had this kind of weird ones.
Yeah, but because if it's if all of our cases look like what we're looking at now, we try to run registration every time the extension config is reconciled. So what could have happened is that just gets deleted before the cluster controller is deleted, and we try to run it again.
Yeah.
That's probably the case in this one.
Yeah.
It could also be the case, of course, because we don't have health checks and stuff on our. No, but has not been registered means that the extension config doesn't exist, basically, or hasn't been read yet, which in that case, we probably already called it earlier in the test, right? Because we're failing at the upgrade, so we would have to have had. In the case we're looking at, where do we actually fail in the test? It's in the before cluster upgrades handler, I guess, is the actual spot.
I have that here, so we're failing here at line 451. Beside that. So in here in runtime hook test handler, and this one got called by line 376, which got called by 115.
Yeah, okay. So this definitely happens before we have any rollouts, but our machine pools aren't rolled out yet.
So in here, so it's in here, right?
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of no pre-wait for control plane to be upgraded. Yeah, pre-wait control
no.
plane.
Yeah, right. It should be. Is it pre-wait for? Yeah, because that was locked here, right?
Yeah, so this is the kind of annoying thing here of how we frame this in the test versus how it's framed as a runtime hook. But yeah, it's pre-wait for control plane to be upgraded.
Yeah, so there may be things we can do to wait for something here before we should actually call that.
Yeah, so whatever is happening with machine pools, is it just machine pools? Can we, in the logs, now we're getting close to time. In the controller logs, is it kind of machine pools that are taking a long time?
So maybe we should take a look what to have a timestamp before. To have a timestamp before this happens. So
it's whatever 52 or 5134, isn't it?
yeah. So somewhat between 5213 and 52.
So we have waiting for the machine pools to be provisioned on line 1710 here.
Yeah.
But I think if we look at the issue, it's that they're not ready. Provisioned means that they have their provider IP, I think.
Yeah. So the reconcile after is, for example, this one. Let's get that line. So, okay. It's just That log message is not the helpful one. Waiting for the Kubernetes node on the machine to report ready state.
Yeah.
But this is the machine set controller, which is not the one we're interested in. We're interested in a cluster controller, right?
So we won't upgrade if the machines aren't ready.
Okay.
That's definitely true to control plane, but yeah. I'm gonna have to drop at the hour, but
yeah. But I think we don't have enough information in the logs here. It just says, okay, we're waiting for the node on the machine to report ready state. But yeah, the theory currently is the machine, the nodes doesn't get ready or do not get ready, which is why it doesn't reach the state yet to call the hook. So what I'm going to do is next take a look at if we get information why the machines are not ready, which may get hard
because you'll be out of date probably.
with the artifacts. Maybe we get another dump of different tests where the data got dumped where the machines are still in that broken state. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, the point where it did continue was exactly here when all the replicas had been ready. So exactly this 41-second thing, and afterwards it comes to before cluster upgrade ready. So,
yeah, so I guess number one thing here is, can we figure out where the topology, if it's the topology reconciler that is exiting because it doesn't want to upgrade before machines are ready, why isn't that being logged somewhere? Or maybe it is being logged somewhere, we're just missing it in the flow of logs. But if it isn't being logged, it should be. That's a key kind of decision that we're making.
yes, so there's no log about why it did not continue. So like that, right?
Yes, yeah. Now maybe there is, but we haven't seen it.
Okay.
Just for clarity, which exact run are you looking at here? So I can follow up in a little bit.
Yeah, let me link that.
Thank you. Okay. I'm going to drop, but thanks a lot for doing this, Christian. This was, I think, super useful. And I feel like we could solve this right now by just adding longer timeouts because of what we've seen, which we actually had in the test, and I pulled them down at some point. But I think maybe we could actually get to the root of a more serious problem here, maybe if we keep looking.
Yeah, so at this point we could do two things. We could increase the timeout to, for now, reduce the flakiness of this test. And the second thing is we could still continue with the last timeout and the pull request to reproduce it and further dig into it.
Yeah, I'd be happy with that as to do both. If you want to open a pull request, I'm not sure what the timeout is right now. Is it 5 minutes?
It's 30 seconds.
It's only 30 seconds for that entire handler.
Yep, it was line 451. So 451. And here is the 30 seconds timeout.
Yeah. And we do that. Yeah, I don't think there's any problem bumping that up to 5 minutes. As long as we record in a separate, well, we can continue on that issue and maybe change the title of the issue or whatever. But yeah, this is a timeout. So like most of the time, the 5 minutes won't cause this test to take longer. It'll only cause this test to take longer in cases where it otherwise would have failed. So I think, yeah, I think that's reasonable. But we should definitely dig into why upgrades are taking this long.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
Thanks very much, everybody. And
Thanks
Christian,
everyone.
again.
Thank you. Thank you, Christian.
I hope this was helpful for others too. Okay, good.